Okay. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. I am going to share my screen. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to NJACAC's virtual fair. You are in the Rutgers University New Brunswick campus presentation. Just have a few housekeeping things before we get started. First, of course, we want to thank our presenter from Rutgers, Jenna Yount, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. For you attendees, students, I just want to point out to you that if you have questions, you can simply use the Q&A button on your screen. You just type in your question to the presenter at any time. Also, you need to know that your cameras and microphones are shut off, so the panelists cannot see you or hear you. They'll only be able to read your questions through the Q&A. Also want to remind you that this is just one of many different sessions happening. So be sure to check out the full schedule at njaacac.org/virtual fair. And you should also know that this presentation is being recorded and it'll be available in about a week on the same website. So in case you want to re-listen or don't get it all. And so just give me 1 minute and I'm going to turn it over to our presenter. Thank you.
Great. Thank you everybody so much for joining us today. My name is Jenna Yount. I'm the Assistant Director of Recruitment and Outreach here at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. So I just shared our presentation with you today. First, I will say, I know you guys have been on Zoom and WebEx a ton. I promise I will do my best to keep it short and sweet. We'll leave tons of time for questions at the end as well. So what we're going to be doing today is just a little bit different as opposed to those normal PowerPoint slide decks you normally see. Instead, we're going to be taking a look at a map of campus and we're going to kind of be popping around in between different areas and talking about some of the different things that go on in each location. So the first place we are going to start is right in the middle of campus. We're going to start on our College Avenue neighborhood in Old Queens. So Rutgers University is an old place. We were founded in 1766, which makes us the 8th oldest college in the nation and older than the US itself, which I think is pretty cool. This is, like I said, really the heart of campus. The reason we bring up why we are so old, we have a really long history of helping students, whether it's with their academic goals, their professional goals, or otherwise. So if we stay right in the same area, we're gonna go pretty much right across the street after we watch this video. 1 second, let me make sure that I did it earlier. Perfect, just wanna make sure that all of our sound was shared. So quick video for you.
Wake up, Rutgers. Let's get to work. We don't have time to hit snooze or wait for the next bus. Look around. This is a big, brave new world. So get out there and go. That's what we do. We're Scarlet Knights. Strong on our own, but together we're unstoppable. All of us after the same things make a difference. Make our communities better. Make our mark on the world. And remember, we've been doing that here on the banks of the Raritan for 250 years.
All right. So, we've gone over. Okay, so like I said, staying in the same area of campus, still on College Avenue, really much right across the street. This is called the Yard. This is one of my favorite areas of campus. Those tall buildings that you see towards the back, those are our Sojourner Truth Apartments. That's housing for our upperclassmen students. And then you'll see down below this kind of grassy area. That is the Yard itself. We have a lot of different student activities there, everything from group fitness activities. We have pumpkin patches in the fall as well. And you'll see a large Jumbotron there to the left. We do show movies there as well as sporting events too. And then you'll also see a lot of restaurants along that bottom floor as well with all of those umbrellas. So definitely a lot going on in this area of campus. This is also one of our main bus stops. So as you probably noticed from that map of campus, we're pretty big. It is a large campus and we do have a busing system to get our students around. So this station right here is one of the most popular on campus. We have 7 different lines and they pretty much all run through this area of campus. So a little bit more about just who we are. As I mentioned, we're pretty big. We have about 36,000 undergraduate students on the New Brunswick campus. If you add in our graduate students as well, that brings our number up to about 50,000 students on this campus. We have over 175 different research centers and institutes, which we're going to talk about in a minute as well, also our sports. But one of the things I like to hit on here is just our diversity within our school. So we are the #1 most diverse school within the Big Ten Conference and one of the most diverse in the US. So we're going to hit on that a little more as well, but I do like to touch on that since I think a lot of students don't necessarily know that about who we are as an institution. All right, so as I mentioned, let's talk about sports. We are a member of the Big Ten Conference, which is Division I. We are in that conference with other schools such as University of Michigan, The Ohio State University, Iowa, Wisconsin, schools like that. But one of the things that I think some students don't know is that the Big Ten is not just an athletic conference, it's also an academic alliance. So students within those schools can actually utilize resources from any of the other Big Ten schools. And that includes things like their libraries. You can take courses at other institutions and participate in research as well. So it's something that we're really proud of. It gives us an opportunity to benchmark what we're doing along with other very prestigious schools and also to collaborate in that sphere as well. But as you see here, the sports, lots of awesome sporting events to attend. Basketball you see here at the RAC, Rutgers Athletic Center. In addition to football as well, that's another large one on our Bush campus. So if sports isn't necessarily something you're into, we do have a lot of other things going on as well. We have over 750 different student clubs and organizations on campus, and they really kind of run the gamut in terms of their focus. So we have some that are more academic based. We have things like a psychology club or a club for students who are interested in investment and finance. We also have some that are just for fun, that are just for social. We have things like a Quidditch club, clubs for students who are interested in movies, for example, film critique. And then we also have some that are philanthropy based. So the one that you see in front of you is Dance Marathon. That is an actual dance marathon where our students are going for 24 hours. But most importantly, it's a philanthropic event to raise money for children with cancer. We typically raise over $1 million each year for us. And that's one of our most popular philanthropic events. In terms of clubs, we also have a Seeing Eye puppy raising club, the cutest club on campus, where our students are actually raising puppies to eventually become seeing eye dogs. So that's something that really is an integral part of our identity, that community service. Students also tend to have questions about fraternities and sororities as well. We do have over 80 of those, and similar to the clubs, they have different interests. Some are community service or academic based. Many of them are purely just for the social aspect as well. So moving from that Livingston campus, we're gonna go back to College Avenue and talk about our location, where we are. So what you're seeing right now is our bookstore. It is a Barnes & Noble. It's actually the largest Barnes & Noble on a school campus in the United States, about 3 stories. It's really awesome to walk through if you're really into books. But it's also the train station. We are located on a New Jersey Transit line, runs right through the middle of campus, which means that it's really easy for you to get around. So if you're trying to get up into New York City, down to Philadelphia, you have all of those train lines to get you there. Additionally, we are also located essentially right off of the New Jersey Turnpike as well. So regardless of where you're coming from, it is very easy to get to campus. So I'm gonna zoom in here. All right, just a close up for you there. So from New York City, we're about a 45-minute drive or so. To get down to Philadelphia, you're looking at about 90 minutes. Where that really plays in with our students is those internships. For many of our majors, thinking specifically business, theater, really good opportunities in the city. Certainly there are other opportunities as well, but it's really easy for our students to get around. So something that we're really happy about. Additionally, we're not too far from the beach as well. So depending on where you're coming from, pretty easy to get down to the Jersey Shore also. All right. So the setup of campus. So I know as you saw on some of the other slides, we have these different areas, what we call neighborhoods within our campus. Each of these different neighborhoods of campus is fully self-contained. They have their own dining halls, their own gyms and student health centers. And our students are really living across campuses. One of the great things though is that you can use any of the amenities from any of the campuses regardless of where you live. So lots of different options there, and many of them have a different emphasis. So for example, we're gonna go next is down to our Cook and Douglas campus where our Rutgers Farm is located, has farm to table restaurants, for example. So you would be free to use any of those different amenities on any of the campuses. All right, and then downtown New Brunswick. So if you haven't had a chance to visit downtown New Brunswick, it really is a very exciting, happening place. It is a city. There's a lot going on there, particularly in terms of arts and culture. So there are a lot of live music events. There is actually an entire theater district within New Brunswick as well. Lots of different eateries, things to do along those lines. So I know for a lot of folks who maybe not have visited it, don't necessarily know how big of a city it actually is. So we're excited to be a part of that as well, and definitely something that you can really get into there as a student. Right, so as I mentioned, our Cook and Douglas campus. So what you guys are seeing right now is actually a part of Rutgers Farm. We are a land grant institution, which means that we have a strong history in terms of agriculture and science. So we do have a working farm. If anyone is interested in pre-veterinary studies or animal science, that is one of our most popular majors in our School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. Lots of hands-on opportunities for our students there. Along those lines.
Almost 500,000 proud alumni sat in these classrooms. CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, visionary inventors, and media moguls. Those are big desks to fill, but we all start somewhere. Our passion and dedication make the world greener and cleaner, even if that means getting a little bit dirty. This is the Garden State. We tend the land, from the Delaware River to the Jersey Shore, and we don't stop there. We patrol the oceans and soak up the sun. Those panels aren't just pretty to look at, they work. There's a fighter inside all of us. We fight for justice and human rights for all. We are activists. When other institutions said no, we said yes. We get to brag about being a leader in women's education. And here at Rutgers, everyone is welcome. Everyone can be themselves. Everyone has a voice.
Right. So I know I mentioned that earlier, but something that we really do take serious, the fact that our student population is coming from a wide variety of different backgrounds. So we have students from all 50 states. At last count, it was about 130 different countries. We have students coming from big cities. We have students coming from rural farmland areas as well. So regardless of what you're looking for, what your background is, you're most likely going to find your niche here in New Brunswick. You're also going to find people that are completely different from you, which we think is absolutely amazing as well. So just something to keep in mind. This slide here, I know I mentioned this earlier, internships and research. That top left picture that you're seeing right there, that is one of our internship fairs. So we typically host 2 of these a year, one in the fall and one in the spring, where we are bringing in literally hundreds of employers. This year was a little lower since we're virtual. It was about 200 employers, but typically we're bringing in about 300 or so, potentially even more. We generally split those up into usually 3 or 4 days that are more focused on certain industries. So we have some that are business focused, for example, some that are STEM field. These are both career and internship fairs, which gives our students an opportunity to hopefully start building some of that experience before they even graduate. You'll see photos here as well about our research opportunities. So our students can get involved in research in their very first semester. We have courses that are held just for our first year students to connect them with current faculty research projects. In addition, we also have an entire research center that's dedicated just to getting students involved. That's called the Arresti Research Center. So regardless of what your year is, you can go in and find potential research projects that may be a good fit for you and connect with faculty members on that. So that's something we certainly want to get our students involved in. Depending on your field, an internship may be more in line with what you're aiming for there. We have a lot of really great opportunities to connect our students with those. For example, on our business school, we have Road to Industry programs. On the finance side, specifically, it's called Road to Wall Street. So we're connecting our students with current alumni who are working in the field to get those students into those internship experiences. Additionally, if you are an engineer, we do also have co-op opportunities as well, where you would essentially be taking a semester off from your coursework and working full-time at a company and earning those work hours there. So lots of different options on that side. So we started talking about academics a little bit. This is called Passion Puddle. This is an absolutely beautiful place on campus. The lore with Passion Puddle is if you walk around Passion Puddle 3 times holding the hand of your beloved, you will eventually one day be married. I personally haven't tried it out, but I hear good things. But the reason we like to highlight Passion Puddle is that Rutgers is going to be where you discover your passion, where you really dig into that. So academics, let's talk about what that would look like. So Rutgers is actually split up into several different schools. The ones you see here are the ones that you can apply into as a first-year student. We do have a few other upper division schools, schools like the School of Social Work, Communications and Information as well. You would apply into those in your sophomore year after having come in through the School of Arts and Sciences. So the School of Arts and Sciences is our largest. It has about 70 different majors in it. Things like psychology, history, English. The other very, very popular one for School of Arts and Sciences is computer science. It tends to be a very, very popular major at the moment. Incidentally, our most popular major for incoming first-year students is actually undecided. So it's perfectly fine if you don't necessarily know what you want to do just yet. The second one you'll see there is the Ernest Mario School of Pharmacy as well. So the School of Pharmacy has one program. We're actually gonna skip over because I have a list for you of all of these. So we'll skip through, we talked about arts and sciences a bit. The Ernest Mario School of Pharmacy is actually a 6-year doctoral program, which means that as a high school student, you can be admitted into a doctoral program. It is very accelerated and competitive to be admitted into. That being said, it's an absolutely great way to save both time and money if you're interested in pursuing that degree. One good thing to know with pharmacy is that if you major in pharmacy, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a pharmacist at, say, a Walgreens or a CVS. There are a lot of other opportunities within that career. You could work at pharmaceutical companies, for example. They have some pharmacists that work at hospitals too. So different opportunities there, not necessarily kind of that specific pharmacy role that I think a lot of us think about. All right, let's talk about the School of Engineering. So within the School of Engineering, things like biomedical, aerospace, electrical. One of the things that's great with the School of Engineering is that you don't actually have to choose your engineering major your first year. So you're going to be coming in, and as a first-year student, you'll take more of a general engineering curriculum where you can kind of test drive each of these majors. At the end of your first year, you're going to be deciding where you want to go from that point. So good to know that you can essentially be undecided engineering. I know a lot of students have questions about that. Other great thing with engineering is just the sheer amount of hands-on experience that you get. So the School of Engineering actually just got a new building 2 years ago with a lot of new lab space in it, a lot of new classroom space and collaboration space as well. If anyone is interested in the civil engineering side as well, one of my favorite hands-on experiences with the School of Engineering is called the Beast. And it actually is a way for us to test bridges. So our students can design different bridge structures and then use this. Looks kind of similar to a car, but you can use the Beast to test and see how that bridge might hold up. So a very fun school to be a part of if you are interested in really that kind of hands-on learning. All right, business school. So 6 different majors within the business school: accounting, finance, marketing, leadership. As I mentioned before, those connections with our alumni in the area are huge for the business school. As you might imagine, as the state university, many of our students stay in this area. New York City is a great place for business. So we have a lot of those connections for our current students. The business school also has a pretty new building within the last 4 to 5 years as well. So a lot of new space there. I know another common question for business school is, what is the difference between New Brunswick and Newark? They're actually the same school, just in 2 different locations, which is something to know there. All right, let's talk about the arts. So Mason Grove School of the Arts is essentially a conservatory model school within our larger public institution. So I know that that feels a little bit at odds, but for our art students, it is a wonderful environment. You are still getting all of the benefits of being at a large public research institution, but you can still have that conservatory model for these arts majors. So we have things like dance, music, design, incidentally includes both graphic design, as well as other forms of design as well. So we have some students in that who are in the more techie side of things, who are doing things like app design, mobile and web page design as well. So different ways you can go on that side. I mentioned theater as well. New Brunswick has a wonderful, wonderful theater scene. This past year, they actually just opened up a brand new theater that Rutgers uses in addition to 2 other theater companies. And all of them are collaborating using that space together, so it essentially never goes dark. Also, if you're interested on the theater side, many of our professors are still working in the field. So many of them are still working on Broadway or off Broadway in things like costume design, set design. So our students have been able to get involved in that as well. All right, environmental and biological sciences. So as you might imagine, the school does have biology. Biology is also located in the School of Arts and Sciences as well. But as I said, we are a land-grant institution. We have things like agriculture and food systems. We have food science. Exercise science is also very, very popular. If you are interested in that pre-vet side, animal science, having the farm is a huge, huge benefit for our students. They're actually able to work with animals during their undergraduate career as opposed to having to wait until their veterinary school experience. So that's something that makes our applicants very, very competitive. The other thing I like to point out about this school is the fact that there are some majors in here that maybe you hadn't considered. If you are a student who's interested in those sciences, maybe you didn't necessarily know that you could major in entomology, for example, which is the study of bugs. One of the things we've seen our students doing with this lately is actually combining things like this with things like criminal justice, criminology, where our students are essentially becoming criminologists and crime scene investigators based off of entomology, the study of bugs as well. So something to know there that if you are looking at some of these majors, you aren't so pegged in with those schools. You can combine them with other things, and they can really lead you to some very wonderful careers that I think a lot of students may not have necessarily thought about. All right, and then lastly, let's talk about nursing. So the School of Nursing is a 4-year Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. It is direct admit, which means that when you're admitted as a first-year student, you don't have to take any other steps in order to get to your practical experiences. Once you're in, you are in. Great thing with the School of Nursing is our connection with local hospitals, as well as throughout the wider state of New Jersey. So really good connections with places like Robert Wood Johnson, for example, which ultimately leads to good placements for our students as well. Something to know for the School of Nursing, they generally do not take transfer students. So if you're interested in nursing, you will want to apply into that as a first-year student. All right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about applying and how you can learn more about Rutgers as well. So we wish, of course, that we could have you on campus. At the moment, we can't. We are still closed. However, on our website, we have lots of different ways to learn more and get engaged. So we do still have our campus tours that are offered online. Those are narrated live by some of our students, our student ambassadors. So you will still be able to ask questions, even though the video is a recording, you will still have a live narrator with you there. One of the things that I think is great about that is the fact that it's a student. It's not an admissions counselor, so you can ask questions about their experiences as well. We also have a lot of information sessions offered through our different schools. So the School of Business, the School of Engineering, they host ones for students who are interested specifically in those programs. And a lot of times they're having faculty members there as well. So you can ask very, very detailed questions. So you would just need to go to our website, admissions.rutgers.edu. I'll drop that in the chat as well. So just know that there are still other ways to get involved with us, even though we can't necessarily have you on campus at the moment. All right, and our application. So a couple ways to apply to Rutgers. We do have our own Rutgers application. We also are a part of the Coalition application. Coalition is similar to Common App. However, schools involved in the Coalition application are dedicated to student access and affordability, which means we want to make sure that all students are able to come to Rutgers and that they are graduating with a minimum amount of debt. So just something to know there. We do have a $70 application fee. However, another caveat, we do offer fee waivers as well. So if $70 is going to be a burden for you and your family, please let us know. I'm going to give my contact information in just a bit. We want to make sure that $70 isn't the reason that you don't ultimately come to Rutgers. If you are applying through the EOF program, or if you have participated in any sort of pre-college program like Upward Bound, TRIO programs, if you participate in the National School Lunch Program as well, your application fee will be automatically waived as long as you indicate that on your application. If you're not a part of one of those programs, but just feel that that $70 is going to be a burden, please contact us. We can work with you on that as well. The second bullet, self-reported academic record. So this one's a little bit different. Instead of needing to submit your official high school transcript, you are going to complete a self-reported academic record instead. So you're going to be taking your transcript and you're going to type in the name of your courses and the grades that you received in them. So that's going to come through us electronically. And that's what we're going to be using to evaluate your application. Eventually, once you've been admitted, once you've decided that you're coming to Rutgers, we will collect your final official transcript after you've graduated from high school. but just something to know for now. You don't need to worry about that at the moment. SAT and ACT scores for the 2021 application cycle, those are optional. We know that a lot of students either couldn't get in for a test, or maybe they took one test and didn't necessarily feel like it was a good representation. You do not need to send in test scores if you don't want to. If you decide not to send test scores, you'll still be eligible for the Honors College, and you'll still be eligible for scholarships as well. So it's not going to be a detriment to your application. It really is up to you on whether or not you feel that those scores are representative. We are very serious about that. Please don't feel pressure to send them if you don't want to. And then the last piece really is for our transfer students. You don't need to worry about it so much, but I do like to mention, if you happen to be taking either AP courses or college courses, you will eventually want to send your college transcript or your AP test score reports to the college you enroll in, since certainly on the Rutgers side, we do give credit for both AP courses and college credits as well. So definitely want to send those over. So the other one that students always ask about are letters of recommendation and interviews. So we do not collect letters of recommendation, and we don't conduct interviews. We don't offer either of those. However, as part of your personal statement, your essay, that's really where we're going to be getting to know you as a person. So something that you want to spend a lot of time on. This year on the application as well, we're also including a question about COVID-19. So just know that you don't have to write your essay about that. If that's something that you don't want to do, you will have space to share how that may have impacted you and your family in a separate question. All right, and then due dates. So November 1, that is our first year early action due date. It's non-binding, it's not early decision, and you're going to have your admissions decision by the end of January at the latest. We typically send them out a little bit earlier than that, but at the very latest, you would know by the end of January. And then our regular decision due date is December 1. And for that one, you would know at the very latest by the end of February. So for those applications, December 1, technically, we will continue to accept applications after that, as long as we have space. But December 1 is the hard cutoff for scholarships, Honors College. So we want to make sure that you are getting those applications in by December 1, if at all possible. In terms of your supplemental items, your self-reported academic record, and if you're submitting test scores, you're going to have the following month. So if you're submitting by November 1, you want to turn all those items in by the end of November. And if you're just submitting your application on December 1, you want to have all those items in by the end of December. And the other pieces there you don't have to worry about in terms of transfer. All right, so this is my contact information. As I mentioned, I'm Jenna, Assistant Director for Recruitment and Outreach. That phone number that you see right there, that is our general admissions line. So that won't come to me directly. However, if you'd like to talk to me personally, just let them know and they'll be able to connect the call over. The email address that you see right there, that is me. That's my direct email address. Please feel free to email me. Certainly you can email our general admissions inbox as well. That's questions@admissions.rutgers.edu. All of them will be going to an admissions officer, but this one is mine personally. Typically, I work mostly with students who are in high schools in Hudson, Passaic, and Essex County. So if you are at one of those schools, you may have seen me around this last year. But certainly, I'm absolutely happy to talk with anyone regardless of what high school you're coming from. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the questions, and we'll take a look at some of the questions that folks had. All right, that's a good question. How easy/difficult is it to change majors if you're in a different department, school, or college? That's a great question. And I realized I didn't touch on something there in the application. So when you submit your application, you are going to be able to apply into 3 schools. So you saw the 7 there for all of the New Brunswick first-year schools. You can select 3 of those. You're going to be receiving separate admissions decisions for each of those schools. So for example, maybe you were admitted into the School of Arts and Sciences and Engineering, but then maybe not into nursing, or any combination of those there. So in terms of changing majors, if you were admitted, say, into School of Arts and Sciences, but you really wanted business, you could apply for what we call a school-to-school transfer. So in your first year, most likely when you come in, you're going to start in the School of Arts and Sciences. You would let your advisor know that you would like to take a different major. They can work with you on taking essentially pre-business courses, and then you can apply to transfer. So it really kind of depends on if the school has space, the school that you're looking at transferring to. and then also how you're doing in your current major as well. They want to make sure that you're doing well in the courses you're currently taking before you move over. So in terms of how easy or difficult, it really depends on what you're looking at. As I mentioned, nursing typically doesn't take transfer students. It's very, very rare, so that wouldn't necessarily be an option. If you're looking at transferring into things like pharmacy or business, the big thing is just making sure that you've been taking the courses that will continue on with that general curriculum. So generally not too much of a process, but just something to know there. In terms of double majors as well, that's another common question. It is possible to double major or do a major and minor across schools. You would just need permission from the school that you would like to take the second major in. So if I was School of Arts and Sciences and I wanted a minor in School of Environmental and Biological, I would just need permission from the dean there. Similar to a school-to-school transfer, they really just want to see that you're doing well in that first major first before you take on another program. Okay, so someone asked, do many students go home for the weekends? You know, a decent amount. We do have, let's see, it's about 60% of our students do live on campus, which means that, you know, we have about 40% of our students who are actually commuting. That being said, some of those students who are commuters live in New Brunswick. So many of them are actually in apartment buildings nearby. So there are a fair few number of students that do go home on the weekends, but many of our students are staying there. As I mentioned, New Brunswick has a lot going on. So it really is kind of a fun place to be on the weekends. It really isn't sort of a suitcase school. If you want that to be your experience and you want to go home on the weekend, it's easy enough. But I would say a lot of our students really are staying there for the most part. All right. What percentage of students have cars on campus? So I will say I don't know the exact percentage. However, anyone can have a car on campus. That's not restricted. You can do it your first year. One thing to know though, if you do have a car on campus, is that that car is really just going to be to get you to and from campus. With so many students, 50,000 students, and you're looking at 10 to 12,000 faculty and staff members as well. If we were all driving our car through New Brunswick and Piscataway, you really couldn't get around campus. So generally our students are driving their car to campus, parking it in their parking lot, and then taking the buses to get around. But you can absolutely have a car on campus. That's not something we restrict. I know a lot of schools restrict that for their first year students. Someone asked about SAT optional for nursing. Yes, we are. All of the schools are SAT optional. Nursing, engineering, pharmacy, you don't have to worry about that. Optional for all of them. All right, someone asked something too. How many schools can I apply for one application? 3. The other thing I'll mention is if you are applying to 3 New Brunswick schools, you will also see the option to be considered for Camden and Newark as well. I always recommend putting in that option. Just in case you aren't admitted to any of the 3 New Brunswick choices, you could be admitted into Rutgers Newark or Rutgers Camden as well. Ultimately, if you want to maybe start at Newark or Camden and then move to New Brunswick, we do have transfer options there as well. So just something to know. All right. Let's see. Okay, what is the difference between electrical and computer engineering in the School of Engineering and computer science in the School of Arts and Sciences? So on the School of Engineering side, it tends to be much more hardware based. That's not a hard fast rule. Certainly our engineers are going to be doing some software based things as well, but generally the major divide between those programs is that the electrical and computer engineering tends to be more hardware based, whereas computer science in the School of Arts and Sciences tend to be more software based. Question. Right, someone says, I know Rutgers Newark has a 7-year medical program, but is Rutgers New Brunswick part of a partnership with Rutgers Newark that includes medical programs? Okay, so we both have accelerated medical programs. The difference for Rutgers Newark is that theirs is a direct admit program. So you can be admitted both into Rutgers Newark and into medical school as a high school student, as a first-year applicant. I will say they admit about 4 students per year, so it is a very, very small program. On the Rutgers New Brunswick side, we have accelerated programs where it's still 7 years. You don't necessarily have to apply as a first-year student. You're going to be coming into the School of Arts and Sciences and working with our health professions office to essentially take an accelerated curriculum. And then at the end of your sophomore year, you're going to be applying into medical school. So if you are admitted, you will finish your undergraduate curriculum in 3 years. and then move on to your medical school program in what would have been your senior year. So we have that for both medical and dental schools there. So really that's the only difference there, is that it's not direct admit on the New Brunswick side. Let's see some of these other ones. Will SAT subject tests be considered in the application? No, we don't look at SAT 2, no subject tests on that one. Certainly if you're taking them, that's great, but not something that we consider in the application process. Someone asked, will 2022 applicants be required to send SAT or ACT scores? Not something we know yet, unfortunately. That's something that we're going to be evaluating based off of this year, and then we should have that decision soon to let people know. I would say at this point, if you have the opportunity to take a test, we do recommend that you do so, not just for Rutgers, for other schools as well. All right. Someone asked, how does the self-reported academic record work? Do I fill it and then attach it to my application? Great question. So you can actually start your self-reported academic record even before your application. You're going to have your own account with them. Once you have applied to Rutgers, you're going to have what we call the status screen. That's where we communicate everything about your application with you. It will take it about 2 days or so after you hit submit on your application. On your status screen, you're going to see a list of things that you need to submit with your application. And that will include your self-reported academic record. So what we recommend that you do is complete the application, and then you can go ahead and create your self-reported academic record account and complete that. I think it works best if you do it kind of right at the same time. And then you're going to go into your Rutgers status screen, and you'll see a button that says connect your application to your Rutgers, or connect your application to your self-reported academic record. So we tried to make it as easy as possible. It's just a gray button. All you have to do is click it, and then you're going to log into the self-reported academic record, and then we'll automatically link. So you'll see a few things on your dashboard for the SAR, self-reported academic record. You'll be able to see when you completed it. You'll be able to see when it was sent to us and when it was actually transmitted. The big thing you're looking for there is that transmitted date, so that you know that we actually received it. So hopefully, I know it's a little bit confusing. Hopefully that's a little easier. Someone asked, do we have a fee waiver? Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. If you need a fee waiver, email me at that email address right there, j.yount@admissions.rutgers.edu. Absolutely, let me know. Someone asked, what is Rutgers' average GPA requirement from high school? That really depends on the school that you're entering. So some of our schools tend to have a slightly higher GPA. For example, pharmacy and engineering tend to be a little bit higher, whereas schools like Mason Gross School of the Arts, for example, tends to be a little bit lower. You can see our average GPAs for each school if you go on our admissions website and look for our admissions profile. There's a little search bar, you can type an admissions profile in it, and it will pop up with all of our median 50% GPAs for each of the schools. So definitely something helpful there. It does have SAT and ACT scores as well, so that could be a good guide in determining whether or not you would like to submit your test scores for your applications. All right, let's see, someone asked that one, can you double major from 2 separate schools? Absolutely. You would come into your primary school and then you would petition for your second major through another school. We do see that quite a bit. Depending on your major, it could be a little difficult. Double majoring with things like engineering tends to be hard, but certainly something that you can do. Someone asked for the honors program to apply separately. No, once you submit your application, we will review everyone automatically. That's the same thing for scholarships as well. All you have to do is submit the app and everyone will be reviewed. Typically the honors programs and honors college will send out invitations in February, is usually when they do that. Just doing some of this. Okay, someone asked, do acceptance rates differ for different schools, or is it just a general acceptance rate? They do tend to differ. And part of that depends on the number of students that apply into them. Some of it also depends on the number of spaces. So for example, our nursing school tends to have a lower acceptance rate. Part of that's just due to the fact that we can't take quite as many students into that program as, say, our School of Arts and Sciences, where that's a very large school. So they do differ slightly, but it kind of depends really on the number of applicants and how much space we have. Good question. Let's see. Someone asked, to apply for computer science, do you apply to School of Engineering or Sciences? For computer science, you will apply into the School of Arts and Sciences if you are looking for that straight computer science major. Right. Someone asked, what on-campus facilities are available to commuters in terms of parking spots, all of those pieces there. We do have designated parking spots for that. We do know that our commuters generally are going to need a slightly closer space depending on where they're going. So it's not going to be that long-term parking that some of our resident students may be in. We have lounges as well for those students. We also try to be very accommodating in terms of student activities as well. So we want to make sure that that's something that our students are actually able to participate in. We have clubs and organizations for commuter students as well in terms of making sure that their needs are met there. So we try to make sure, as I mentioned, quite a few of our students are actually commuting, so it is a large part of our population, and it's something that we are very mindful of as well. Right. Someone asked, do you allow students to change roommates? We do. When you are submitting your housing application, you can request a roommate on there. They would need to request you as well. But we do allow students to change roommates as well. Generally, they're going to work with you first. They want to see if there's some sort of conflict resolution that they can work on first. But yes, we do allow students to change roommates. Let's see, we covered that one here. Let's see. Sorry guys, just talking about the honors college. Someone asked for students who are coming from another country as well in terms of English proficiency tests. Generally, if you came to the United States, generally after elementary school, for the most part, you're going to need to show some sort of English proficiency. We do offer several different tests for that. We do offer Duolingo, the TOEFL as well. You can see all of the requirements for that on our admissions website. Question. Okay, well, good question here. Are New Jersey residents applying guaranteed admissions? They are not. We don't guarantee admissions for anyone, regardless of whether you're in state or out of state as well. I will say the majority of our students, the vast majority really are New Jersey students. We have about 80% or so tend to be New Jersey. So it is a much larger contingency. Someone asked about a dual major for engineering. I believe it was mechanical and aerospace. There isn't specifically one in there. You can potentially do that. It would be a rough road, but you could absolutely do that. Newark and Camden are also test optional. Someone asked about test optional there. Newark and Camden are as well. Same thing for nursing. Someone asked, do you apply to the school or the major within that school? You're applying to the school in general. So even though School of Arts and Sciences has 70 majors, for example, you would just need to apply into the school and you can major in any of the programs that are in that school. Good question. Someone asked about getting between campuses. Could a student have a class on Bush campus followed by a class on the Cook campus? You could. Generally, we have about 30 minutes in between classes though. And if you are taking the bus, the longest route is about 8 minutes long. So we try to be very accommodating with that. They also, particularly your first year, when they work with you on scheduling courses, they're going to help make sure that something like that doesn't happen. Most of our upper level courses tend to be kind of on their home campus. For example, your engineering courses will generally be on Bush. So you're going to have a little bit of an easier time. Hopefully you're not going to be bouncing so much. So one of the things I do want to say, we will get a list of all of the questions. We're going to get cut off in just a moment, but I'm going to have all of these questions and I will follow up with everyone who asked a question that we didn't get to today, just to make sure that you are all answered. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Like I said, I know that it's really hard being on Zoom all the time. So thank you guys. Please look for an email from me to follow up on these questions. And you have my email address here. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have anything else that we may not have covered today. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Jenna. You did a great job. And you already get part of my announcement. Oh, sorry, that's my alarm that the session's over. I just want to let all the students know that as you close the window for this webinar, that you will get a very quick 4-question survey that we ask for your input. I would like to know what you thought of it. Also, as Jen already mentioned, this session is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to it. And the questions that were left in the Q&A unanswered will get addressed. Okay, and we just remind you that there are other sessions that you can sign up for, and thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your being here. And thank you, Jenna. Okay, goodbye everybody.